Hi again, John Wesley Bready, Bulwarks of Social Liberty, the chapter in This Freedom Whence, page 269. This is on religion and British trade unionism. The story of the trial and transportation of the Dorchester laborers, say Sidney and Beatrice Webb in The History of Trade Unionism, is the best-known episode of early trade union history. Popularly, the victims of this atrocious sentence are known as the Tolpuddle Martyrs, and so dear is their memory to British trade unionists that they erected to them in Tolpuddle Village a memorial arch. The thrice-told story of these 6 martyrs need not be here retold. Often, however, it is forgotten that 3 of them, George and James Loveless and Thomas Standfield, were local preachers, that John Standfield and James Hammett were active Christian workers and members of Tolpuddle Methodist Chapel, and that James Brine, who, when transported, had no religious conviction, was so influenced by the character of Thomas Standfield, with whom he slaved in a convict gang in Australia, that on return he married his daughter and, migrating to Canada, became a Sunday school superintendent. Often, too, it is forgotten that young James Hammett, who had no connection with the Union and was arrested by mistake for his brother John, heroically concealed the error that his brother might not be torn away from his wife, who soon was expecting the birth of a child. These humble martyrs were all sober, intelligent, hard-working agricultural laborers. They and all their fellow farmhands around Tolpuddle, because of an agreement among the local farmers, had found their wages gradually depressed to the subsistence level of 7 shillings a week. So under the leadership of the able, godly George Loveless, they decided, for the protection of their families, to form an agricultural union. And following the union custom in industrial areas, they bound all members by a secret oath. Here was a loophole through which the authorities entered. These men had been guilty of no violence, no insurrection, no intimidation. They had not so much as hinted at a strike. They simply had dared to form a friendly union to counter the combined coercion of their employers, and in so doing, they inadvertently had administered a secret oath. That was enough. A long-dormant statute was called into play, though the magistrate in question and the Home Office, in conjunction with which he laid his trap, knew well that Masonic and other lodges regularly administered secret oaths. At daybreak on February the 24th, 1834, the 6 laborers were dragged from their homes and marched off to Dorchester jail. After the briefest of trials, conducted by a new judge, John Williams, who harangued against the laborers as though they were arch conspirators, all were subjected to the monstrous sentence of 7 years' transportation. By March the 30th, the prisoners were in the hulks, destined for Botany Bay, and Lord Melbourne, then Home Secretary, voiced the opinion that the law had been most properly applied. With the execution of this ferocious sentence, it was predicted by the forces of repression that the whole trade union cause would be crushed. Such was far from the case. In prison, George Loveless wrote his Hymn of Freedom, and here it is. God is our guide, from field, from wave, from plough, from anvil, and from loom. We come, our country's rights to save, and speak the tyrant's faction's doom. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. God is our guide. No swords we draw. We kindle not war's battle fires. By reason, union, justice, law, we claim the birthright of our sires. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. Loveless's hymn was smuggled from prison to friends without. It was expressive of the spirit of the rising trade union movement. The London Observer, in 1937, paying tribute to that monumental study of 19th century England by the French historian Elie Halevy, says, quote, "No one got so thoroughly under the surface of political labels or made a more telling demonstration of the interaction of economic, religious, and other forces. England has never found a truer interpreter." End of quote. Yet this same penetrating interpreter, in the first volume of his monumental history, affirms, quote, "The majority of the leaders of the great trade union movement that would arise in England within a few years of 1815 will belong to the nonconformist sects. what they were called in those days, dissenters. They will often be local preachers, that is, practically speaking, ministers. Their spiritual ancestors were the founders of Methodism. End of quote. The purport of Halevy's observation is apparent in this connection. Far from these transportation sentences intimidating trade unionism, they spurred it to prove that already it was a power in the land, a power inspired by high ideals, disciplined by self-control, and set on the attainment of justice and liberty by pacific action. Scarcely had the cruel verdict been pronounced when a strong petition of protest was circulated. Soon it contained over 250,000 signatures. And despite the disgruntled pronouncement of Lord Melbourne that he would neither receive a deputation nor a petition from a procession, a demonstration was arranged to bear the petition to the Home Office on April 21st, 1834, on the admission of the Times, which feverishly opposed the procession. Not less than 30,000 organized workers bearing 33 trade banners marched from Copenhagen Fields to Whitehall to present the petition. It was the first great trade union demonstration England had seen, and it was thoroughly peaceful and orderly. At the head of the procession, wearing full canonicals, including the scarlet hood of a Doctor of Divinity, rode the chaplain to the Metropolitan Trade Unions, Reverend Dr. Arthur Wade. Religion, sincerely and purposely, was symbolized as leading the Union cause. Nor did the petition and procession represent the end of this matter. A London Dorchester committee was set up, and throughout the country an unceasing agitation was maintained. Even in parliamentary debates, the Dorchester labourers became the first familiar, then heroic characters. Indeed, the day soon arrived when Melbourne wished heartily he had never heard of the village of Tolpuddle or of its 6 Union martyrs. For if, as Home Secretary, he had encouraged their arrest and sanctioned their sentence 2 years later, as Prime Minister he was compelled by pressure of public opinion to remit their sentence, to sanction their pardon, and to find public funds wherewith to effect their return. Owing to official blundering, however, both in England and in Australia, it was not till early in 1838 that the transported men arrived home, where to their surprise they discovered that fellow workmen had collected £1,300 to give them a fresh start in life. Moreover, although the future of all save one of these martyrs lay in the New World, it is significant that their true successor, Joseph Arch, founder of the National Agricultural Labourers Union, was also a local preacher. More on the trade unions next time. I'll put in a link to William Ramsey. No, I'm sorry. I've just made a mistake. It's not William Ramsey this time. It's Walter Rauschenbusch. The destructive effects of the Industrial Revolution. And of course, Rauschenbusch is not just talking about Britain or Europe. He's talking about America specifically. See you soon.